the Eagles are only on the hook for under $3 million, and guaranteed money moving forward. So no, it's not an issue at all from a financial aspect. The Jets are on the hook for nearly all of it. And the only thing complicated was that $5 million guaranteed for injury, because he has had some injury issues, and it is rare. I would not recommend giving that up, but they did.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, back with another edition of the show for you today. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way in. Drop your comments down below. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, brother?
Doing well. Happy Michael Carter Day.
Yeah.
Not the Arizona running back, so don't get it confused. The now Eagles defensive back, and I'm going to call him defensive back for a reason, because they have evidently acquired him because of his versatility and his ability to play in different spots. Very Abante Maddox-like, I was told.
It's a decent comp for him. I mean, he's played a lot of snaps, John, 2,200 plus in his career in the slot at a 2,600 total. So felt to me mostly exclusively slot. When you say versatility, you're thinking safety there?
Yeah, they consider safety and slot a little bit of a mirrored position they have in this year. You remember Jonathan Gannon actually would call it that when Avante was here, and he played the same scheme for the most part. So Vic doesn't talk about it that definitively, but you see a lot of that in Cooper's ability in training camp to play safety as well. So yeah, they see him sort of in that style of player. And we'll see how it works out. But I don't think it's an indication that Cooper's moving to the outside full time. But it does give them more options, more optionality. Let's bring Sam Hinkie in the conversation. Hate doing that, but more optionality. So, I mentioned a couple weeks back, I don't understand why they don't sort of pick and choose depending on the opponent. Like last week against the New York Giants, well, they don't have anybody without Malik Neighbors, so you don't really have to worry about it. But, Dallas coming up, again, you have CD Lamb, presumably going to be healthy, plays a lot in the slot. Well, you'd want Cooper on him versus somebody like Michael Carter. But maybe if you're, playing DK Metcalf or somebody like that, you might rather have Cooper outside. And now that gives you a better opportunity to mix and match. Now, step number one, as I said, is he's got to earn the trust of Vic Fangio, and that's, he's coming in late in the process. Obviously, didn't have a training camp with this team, didn't have an off season, so he's got to earn the trust of Vic Fangio, number one. But Joe Douglas is in the building. Joe drafted him. Was a good player early in his career with the Jets.
Got a big deal, John, in beginning of the year last year. Yeah.
And then some injuries popped up over the past 2 years or so, and that's usually what happens in the NFL. Guys get banged up, and then the Jets made a trade for a nickel who's playing pretty well, and they thought he was expendable, but should help the Eagles, should help them. But I don't think it's as clearly defined as some people want to make it be as far as what his role will be.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it does add, John, immediately. I mean, if you moved Cooper right now, who the heck would play the slot before Michael Carter? Now you get Michael Carter, and maybe they're not going to do that, but it feels like if they do that, at the very least, they're a little bit better positioned. I mean, assuming Michael Carter, can play well. He hasn't played great the last 2 years. You mentioned the injuries that have popped up. What do you think of the trade, though, overall? I mean, is it just a mad trade to you? Is it a trade that, you think Cooper will eventually end up on the outside? Is it another Jacorian Bennett? Like how do you kind of view it?
kind of view it like the other trades this year that everybody got excited about that are sort of wait and see, going all the way back to, well, there's different styles of trades, but you bring up Bennett, that's this is more the draft positioning sort of kicker, not player for player, like that was. But if you look at the trades, everybody made a big deal about Kenyon Green, no matter how many times. Not a big thing. Throw in wasn't that big part of that deal. It was more about moving on from CJ, getting some of the money off the books. And then the same thing with John Mechie. At the time, the Eagles, needed a body at receiver. They had too many bodies at tight end. It was clear that Harrison Bryant wasn't going to make the team. You make a trade. Houston needed a tight end, and now obviously Mechie gets you, part of the deal for Michael Carter. So, um, people get way too hyper focused on, like, is this guy, yeah, it's sort of wait and see, I would say.
Yeah, John, he did have some change at the defensive coaches. He had Robert Saleh. That's when he played his best in 23. With Robert Saleh there. Robert Saleh obviously was fired last year, and they went to an interim coach, and then they brought in Aaron Glenn this year. So a lot of kind of change for him, defensive personnel wise. Do you think coming to Vic Fangio's scheme could allow that player to potentially elevate? We've already seen that story obviously happen in the Vic Fangio defense and with Philly. We've also saw it not happen with guys like Bryce Huff. So there's multiple ways to look at it. But do you think that could be, a way for him to kind of, find that 23 form again? Because he was a very good player in 23, or at least was graded very highly and got paid like it. So
to me, it's more about sort of the other Mechie for Harrison Bryant that I brought up. And it's like, all right, they feel they need another body at corner, and with Darius Cooper coming back, really the only role that John Mechie had as a blocker in 13 personnel is gone. So, you take a shot. That's what I think
with a receiver that really wasn't going to get a lot of time here.
Exactly. So, he's not going to play here. Can he turn into the player he once was? Again, Joe is very familiar with him. I think it's got more to do with the injuries than the specific schematic stuff. And then part of it has to do with the regime change. There's no loyalty to guys who were drafted by Joe Douglas. And they traded for Jarvis Brownlee, and he's their guy now. So, I think it more has to do with, I think it's very similar to the earlier Mechie trade when they got Mechie.
Yeah, that's a fair comp. Yep.
Which is,
I think Carter obviously is a little bit more upside than what you sent away there with Harrison Bryant, but
they sent away Mechie was coming in. Does he have more upside than Mechie? People were pretty excited about Mechie when he came in.
I mean, I was. Mechie is a Bama kid, so I mean, potentially, I was a little biased in that regard. But he was a solid receiver. But we all know the deal here with the receivers. We're not a pass first offense. We got two big dog receivers: AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and even Jahan Dotson, who has showed that he can flash. So I get it. It makes sense though of why they would move on, even if Mechie did have upside. Probably a better situation for Mechie, even though he's got
definitely he'll get a better opportunity. Definitely a better situation for him, at least personally, not team wise, obviously, but he should get more of an opportunity to earn playing time as a receiver and have some opportunity to prove. And if Carter, gets over with Vic Fangio, he'll get an opportunity to play. But I do think doesn't signal the end of Cooper DeJean in the slot. Vic values him too much there. But I've also kept bringing up at some point, the business of football's got to enter the conversation as well.
Right.
And you can also look at the Tank Bigsby trade, and from the standpoint of, look, they brought him in here to be a kick returner. and he didn't do well. And they said, well, let's give him a couple runs. And he did well. So things can shift quickly in this league. So, if he takes the baton and plays well, obviously, the more playing time there will be.
What are the Eagles hoping for with this deal? Hoping that he's good enough to move Cooper outside, or are they just
no versatility,
that's it?
options, the ability to move Cooper around more? That's what they're hoping for.
Okay. Well, I think they're going to get that. John, walk me through the money element of it. He waived a $5 million injury guarantee for next season in order to get the deal to go through, is what Ian Rappaport put out there. Obviously, he's coming off signing a pretty big contract. I think he was a 10-year, 3-year, 10 million per year. It was 30 million, I think 30.2 or somewhere in that range. Just at the beginning of last season. So, did the Eagles inherit that contract? Like how does that work? Because if you tell me a player's making that much money, it feels like they're going to be on the football field.
Yes, they do inherit the contract, but as you mentioned with the standpoint, but you have to understand how contracts are. So, the Jets have paid the vast majority of his guaranteed money. So,
Right.
that's all off the table. So forget about the 3 years, 30 million. Like he made the money, he made the guaranteed money, whatever. I think it was 18 or 19 guaranteed. That Jets already paid that. The Eagles are only on the hook for under 3 million. And guaranteed money moving forward. So no, it's not an issue at all from a financial aspect. The Jets are on the hook for nearly all of it. And, the only thing complicated was that 5 million guaranteed for injury, because he has had some injury issues. And it is rare. I would not recommend giving that up, but they did. And from the Eagles standpoint, yeah, no financial worries at all. If it doesn't work at all, it's not going to hurt you much more than a rounding error.
Yeah. Maybe he's betting on himself a little bit. Waiving that 5 million, as you mentioned, is definitely a bold thing to do in the NFL. I'm surprised that he did it, but maybe shows you, John, that I don't know. Sometimes I do like to put into it, like playing for the Jets, I feel like can be draining, as a player, as a person, mentally, physically. I'm wondering if he can come here kind of, you go from 1-7 to 2-6 overnight, J Mac. You're all of a sudden looking like, all right, man, I got a chance to contribute to a winning team. And I know that's not everything for every player, but I do think it is something for a lot of players who spend a lot of their career, who get a big bag of money or who make their contract, and they just lose, and keep losing. Now you get Vic Fangio. You're coming to a team that's 6-2 and in prime position, to be a contender in the NFC. And Vic Fangio is going to be your defensive coordinator. I feel like that could reinvigorate the player at the very least, or at least bring out potentially the better side of the player.
Well, I think it's a thing. I talk about it this time of year. It's a crappy day around here where we are, and
Yeah, it is.
the leaves are coming down today. The leaves have all given up today. And I always compare that to NFL teams. And you saw it last week. The bad teams started to give up when things went poorly early in games, and that tends to happen this time of year. Same thing with individual players. Yeah, I mean, it's human nature. So you can definitely get a boost from going to a one of the worst teams in football to a legitimate contender. That can definitely give you a boost. With Carter's case, I think it's more about the health and where he is. Now he's dealing with a concussion this year, so and he was back last week, but he didn't play because he lost his job to Brownlee. Yeah, I think he played 5-6 snaps, something. So he should be ready to go. And yeah, I mean, I think it's to the point where you got a bunch of bodies and you got to see who's your best bodies.
Right.
And, you know, coming off a game where Keely Ringo probably had his best game. Does that spark him? A lot of inconsistency.
Right.
Adoree Jackson,
And
he'll be back.
what scenario do you think would have to happen for Michael Carter to consistently be on the field for the Eagles?
I think Keely and Adoree and perhaps Jakorian would have to all stink. And it's interesting, Jakorian. I mean, like I said, at some point now you have too many bodies at corner. You might consider sending one of them out. Like with Mechie, it's like it's not a bad player, but again, once Cooper came back and you signaled, look, in these 13 heavy looks, the Fred Johnson looks, if Cooper's going to be the receiver in those looks, would be Johnny Wilson, but if Cooper's going to be the receiver in those looks, where's the role for John Mechie? He doesn't play special teams. They don't need him a kickoff returner anymore because Xavier Gipson has solidified that, at least until he fumbles. That was his rep.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he solidified it. I mean, maybe
he solidified it for now until.
I mean, I haven't seen that much Xavier from Xavier Gibson,
he
but
looked pretty good as a punt returner. Now you're saving spots. Hey, he showed last week was Shipley. The week before was Gibson. He showed more than Mechie did as a kick returner in his one opportunity. So he's ahead of them now. So you have AJ, you have Devontae, you have Jahan, you have Cooper in 13 personnel, you have Gibson on special teams. And then, you also have Terrace Marshall on the practice squad. People forget about Quez Watkins is back. I know people love that. Britton Covey as a returners on the practice squad. So if all these bodies, you really need John Mechie and you're able to get a corner. So that's about the trade. And I could see the same thing happen at corner if you can convince somebody. Now, is somebody going to acquire Adoree Jackson at his age? Is somebody going to acquire Jakorian Bennett? You might go flip Jakorian Bennett.
I could see someone acquiring Ringo. I mean, really young player.
Well, yeah, well, he's the one guy I don't think they want to trade because of the special teams value. And he's still under that cost-effective deal.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, Mac McWilliams. Now Perry Nickerson got put, he's off the 53.
I don't seem to have much belief or haven't seen much from Mac McWilliams, is what it appears to me. I mean,
he's a fifth round rookie. I mean,
but I mean, you're making a lot of moves, for cornerbacks. I'm wondering,
Well, yeah,
I know it's a fifth round rookie, but if you're taking shots, hey, maybe take a shot on your fifth round rookie.
Well, I think they've clearly identified he's not playing the fifth round rookie, but I don't think that's the end of his career in Philadelphia. I mean, that's day 3 pick, and that's what happens. And you hope to quietly develop those guys behind the scenes. But this is Philadelphia, and everybody, give him a shot. You don't want to give him a shot. You don't want to ruin his potential upside by getting him gashed each and every week. So sometimes you have to because of trades, because of injuries, excuse me. But Howie's the type of GM that's going to go out and do something, as he did here with Michael Carter. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to be for Howie Roseman. But yeah, I'm not going to shut the door on. I'm not going to shut the door on Mac McWilliams, other than yes, they have proven that he's not an option for this year.
Yeah, right. John, if this trade works out perfectly, meaning if it's a slam dunk home run, and in a couple years we're talking about like, oh, what a great in-season trade that was, what will it look like? Will he be the starting slot? Doesn't even sound like that's really what they want.
No, I think I think they don't, because I think, in Vic's, you talk about scheme. That's where maybe scheme does come into it. And
right.
like run support is a big, big thing with Vic. in his nickel corners and have a physical guy, think about what Cooper did to Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. To have that type of player, he really doesn't want to move him full time outside. Now, at some time, the business of football's got to enter the conversation.
Right.
Or the Eagles can say, there's nothing that prevents the Eagles from saying, you're so good, we're going to pay you like an outside corner, even though you're not an outside corner. They could do that. Probably piss off the rest of the league, but they could do that. But Vic, as he explained this week, it's a weird dichotomy. Sort of like I compare it to running backs on offense when running backs are devalued. Running backs are devalued. And for years they were right. And they still touch the ball more than everybody else but the quarterback.
Right.
So it in a lot of ways it made no sense. And the same thing with slot corner. Well, outside cornerbacks are more valuable. Well, who's involved more from a play-to-play basis? It's the guy on the interior. So it's kind of often the business of football is counterintuitive to what goes on in the field, other than, you run through slot corners, you have a difficult time finding slot corners. But if you're in a Vic Fangio scheme, slot corner is more important than maybe some of the other schemes around the NFL.
Yeah, good stuff. John, a couple super chats, and then we got the man, the myth, the legend, Rick Saratella, coming up here on Birds 365. Appreciate everybody for being here. Hit that like button. We'll rattle through these three super chats and then get to Rick. Bison says, Big Hurt was with Tariq Woolen in D.C. and Seattle. Maybe he told Howie no bueno. Yeah, Tariq Woolen, who's in Seattle. A lot of people wanted him, John, and that's true. Clint Hurt was with him.
Clint Hurt has not mentioned a damn word to Howie Roseman about personnel. People got to forget about that. Vic said it straight up. Vic's the defensive coordinator, and he was asked about, how much do you get involved in the trade? And basically, the answer is zero. He said, I believe he used the term very minimal. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a 30 deep personnel department. That's their job. That's their job. Now, if they're doing their job right, they get players and styles of players the coaching staff does want, so they build the relationships. They talk about it that way. But no, Clint Hurt is not coming into Howie's office and saying, hey, don't trade for Tariq Woolen. Although, if he did, I'd agree with him.
Here's JD3. I think it's a versatile move. Play a team with a great slot, keep Coop at nickel. If you play a team with a great X and Z, play Coop outside. Thoughts?
Yeah, JT3 said it better than me. That's what I was trying to say with CD Lamb. So well done. But it's exactly what's going on.
Good job, JD3. Latef, what's up, Latef? Halfway through the season, are you sticking with your original Eagles record prediction, or has the first half changed your mind? I think I had 13-4. And if we did the up and down, I think I went down to 12-5. So I'm
we did I was 11 and went up to 12. Yeah. So I'm probably at 12 now because they won some games. They probably shouldn't have won. So I think they're above where they should be. But if they come out and lose to Green Bay and Detroit, I'm right on pace.
Yeah, right. Might even
kind of those two games are going to tell me everything about this team. And they could beat both of them. I'm not saying they're going to lose to them.
I think they might, but big excitement then for those couple games coming up. Lataf, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning.